After Dad left us for his mistress, I found a secret that made him regret everything he ever did. My dad's knuckles hit my mom's front door again, hard enough that the glass in the frame rattles, and I feel in my teeth. I'm standing in the hallway with a manila envelope pressed to my chest like a shield, my fingers sweaty against the paper, while my brother paces behind me whispering, don't open it, like we're 12, and he's protecting me from a monster under the bed. Outside, Dad's voice rises and cracks, the way it only does when he's losing. Maya, open the door. We can talk like adults. Don't do this. His breath fogs the peephole. I can see the blur of his face, too close, too familiar, too entitled. The old reflex flares in me. Smooth it over, make it quiet, keep the peace, until I remember the last time he said we'd talk like adults and then walked out of our lives like we were a bad habit. I turn the deadbolt anyway, slow and deliberate, and the sound is so final it makes my stomach clench. The door swings inward and he's right there on the step, hair a little messy, cheeks unshaven, dressed like he threw on the first decent shirt he could find. His eyes snap to the envelope, then back to my face, and his mouth tightens as if he's trying to swallow anger. What is that? He says, already knowing. I don't step aside. I don't invite him in. I keep my body in the doorway the way you do when you're not letting someone past you. Not anymore. It's the documents you forgot existed, I say, and my voice shakes, but I don't hide it. The ones Mom kept for when you tried to rewrite history. His jaw works. Maya, he warns, and I feel my brother's hand touch my shoulder from behind, grounding me. Dad's gaze flicks past me toward the living room, as if he still owns the right to look into this house. You can't do this to me, he says. I'm your father. I blink once slow. You were, I say, and the words land heavy in the space between us. It was a Wednesday night 2 years ago when he left, properly left, not that I'm going to stay at a mate's for a bit, kind of leaving he'd done during fights. I remember because Mom had made spaghetti and the kitchen still smelled like garlic and simmering tomatoes, and Dad's suitcase was open on the couch like a mouth. I'd come home from work and found him folding shirts with the calm focus he used when he'd already decided the story and didn't want anyone interrupting it. Mom stood by the sink, hands submerged in soapy water even though there were no dishes left to wash, because she needed something to do with her hands. My brother Liam was sitting at the dining table staring at his phone, like if he didn't look up, it wasn't happening. Dad didn't cry. He didn't shake. He didn't look ashamed. He just said, I'm not happy anymore, as if that was a weather report. Then he added, with that tone like he was asking us to be reasonable, I deserve to be happy. When Mom said, very quietly, what about us? He sighed like she was making it complicated. He didn't say the word mistress. He didn't say her name. He said, there's someone else, like it was a mistake that happened to him, not something he chose. Later, when I found out her name was Serena, it felt unreal, like a character in a soap opera had stepped into our kitchen and stolen my dad. He hugged Mom at the door like he was leaving for a business trip. He kissed my forehead, which made my skin crawl because it was such a parent gesture and he was actively unparenting himself. He patted Liam on the shoulder and said, be good to your mother, like Mom was my job now. Then he walked out with his suitcase, and his car started, and the headlights swept across the living room wall like a spotlight as he reversed. I watched from the window. I watched him pull away. I watched him turn the corner and disappear. And the most humiliating part was how normal everything looked outside. Quiet street, neighbor's porch light, someone walking a dog. Like our whole world hadn't just cracked. The months after that were what people don't talk about when they talk about divorce. Not the dramatic screaming fights or courtroom scenes. The slow administrative grief. The paperwork. The phone calls. The way your mom tries to keep her voice steady when she asks what bills are set up in whose name. The way your dad suddenly forgets passwords. The way you discover he's been using the joint account like it's his personal safety net. The way your brother starts sleeping with his headphones on because silence feels too loud. Dad moved into an apartment across town temporarily. He posted photos on social media like he was 25 again, craft beer, rooftop bars, weekend trips. Serena was always a blurred shoulder in the frame at first. Then she was smiling beside him, hand on his chest, teeth too white. Under one photo, someone commented, so happy you found your joy. And I remember staring at the screen thinking, joy is apparently what you call it when you abandon your family and pretend it's self-care. Mom didn't badmouth him. That was part of what made it so brutal. She tried to be fair, even while her hands shook when she opened the mailbox. She kept saying, "He's your father," like she was reminding herself as much as me. She cried in the laundry room because she didn't want Liam to hear. I find a basket of clean towels half folded and her sitting on the floor, staring at nothing, face blotchy, and she'd wipe her cheeks fast and say, "I'm fine." I stopped believing the word fine around that time. Dad's version of leaving was that he'd still be there. He said it like it was a promise. But being there for him meant texting once every couple of weeks and asking, "How's work?" like we're distant relatives. It meant sending Liam a meme on his birthday instead of showing up. It meant calling Mom late at night when he was drunk and saying things like, "I miss the way you used to laugh," as if Mom's laughter was the thing that changed, not his behavior. When Mom asked him for help with the mortgage, just a split, just something fair, he said, "I can't right now. Things are tight." Then the next week he posted a photo in a boutique hotel with Serena, caption, "Needed this." Mom kept the house, or at least she tried to. It was the house I grew up in, the one with the dent in the hallway wall from Liam's soccer ball and the uneven backyard pavers Dad always said he'd fix one day. One day never came. Suddenly Mom was paying for everything and still trying to act like it wasn't breaking her. I moved back home to help. I told my friends it made sense financially. That was true. But the real reason was I didn't trust the house not to swallow Mom whole if she was alone in it with her grief and Dad's absence echoing off the walls. Liam was in his last year of uni, working part-time, and the stress made him sharp. He'd snap at Mom over nothing, then slam his door and later come out with red eyes and say sorry in a small voice. We all became smaller versions of ourselves in that first year. The secret I found didn't fall into my lap in a dramatic hidden safe behind a painting way. It was in a place so boring it almost makes me angry. The bottom drawer of Mom's old filing cabinet, the one that squeaked and stuck because it was jammed with years of receipts, school records, warranty cards, and the kind of papers people keep because throwing them out feels risky. Mom asked me to look for a copy of the house insurance policy because the provider said we needed it updated. I pulled the drawer open and it snagged, and when I yanked it, a brown envelope slid out from the back and hit the floor with a soft slap. On the front, in Mom's handwriting, it said, "If he tries it again." My stomach tightened so hard it felt like hunger. I crouched and picked it up. The paper was worn at the edges like it had been handled more than once, then put back and left alone. My hands hovered, hesitating because it felt wrong, like reading a diary. But the words on the front weren't private. They were a warning. Inside was a key taped to a folded sheet of paper, and the paper was a note from Mom to me. It wasn't long. Mom doesn't write long, emotional notes. That's not her style. It said, "Maya, if you're reading this, he's done it. I am sorry. The key is for the safety deposit box at Westfield Bank. Everything you need is there. Don't let him take the house. Don't let him bully you. Love you." My throat closed. I remember standing up too fast, the room spinning slightly. I called Mom into the study and held the envelope out like it was fragile. She looked at it, and her face went blank in a way that made me understand this wasn't a new plan she'd come up with after Dad left. This was something she'd prepared years earlier, quietly, because she knew who she was married to even when she was still trying to love him. "Mom," I whispered, "what is this?" She sat down slowly. Her hands were steady, but her eyes weren't. "It's insurance," she said, and then she swallowed. After the first time, first time, Mom's lips pressed together. She exhaled long. "He had an affair before you finished high school," she said quietly. "Not Serena. Someone else. He begged. He cried. He promised. I made him sign something. I made him transfer the house into my name. He said he'd do anything. I believe him because I wanted to believe him." My skin went cold. The house in Mom's name. That line hit like a beam of light in a dark room. Dad had spent the last 2 years talking like he still owned half of everything, like Mom was being greedy keeping the house, like it was only fair that he should get a share. He'd hinted at taking legal action. He'd threatened mediation. He'd sent texts that said, Don't make me do this the hard way. I'd been living with this constant anxiety that one day a court letter would appear and we'd lose the house, the last piece of stability Mom had clung to. You never told me, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Mom looked down at her hands. I didn't want you to carry it, she said, and I didn't want your father to be that in your eyes. I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. He did that himself, I said. We went to the bank the next day. Mom didn't want it at first. She said she couldn't handle seeing more proof of who he was. I told her I'd go alone, but she insisted on coming, jaw set like she was marching into a storm. The bank smelled like carpet cleaner and old air conditioning. The clerk was polite in that blank way people are when they don't want to be involved in your personal drama. She asked for ID. Mom signed a form. Then she led us into a little private room and opened a metal drawer with our box inside. Mom's hand shook when she slid it onto the table. She looked at me and nodded once like, go on. Inside were documents in neat labeled folders. A copy of the deed showing the house transferred into Mom's sole name years ago. A post-nuptial agreement Dad had signed, witnessed, stating that in the event of infidelity and abandonment, he waived any claim to the house and agreed to specific financial terms. There were printouts of emails from Dad back then, begging, promising, swearing he'd never do it again. There were also bank statements, old ones but still, showing a second account Dad had kept hidden and a note in Mom's handwriting. If he's broke, it's because he chose to be. Don't let him use it. I sat there staring at the paperwork, feeling like I'd stepped into an alternate timeline where Mom had been quietly strategizing while I was thinking we were a normal family. Mom didn't cry. She just sat upright, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the table like if she moved, she'd shatter. The secret wasn't just that the house was protected. It was that Mom had known, not about Serena specifically, but about Dad's capacity to leave, to betray, to rewrite. She prepared for it like someone prepares for a hurricane in a place that gets hurricanes. When Dad found out Mom was refusing to sell the house and refusing to buy him out the way he demanded, he escalated. He started showing up at the house unannounced, like he had the right. He'd knock and knock until Mom's shoulders went tight and Liam would mutter, I hate him, through clenched teeth. Dad would stand on the porch with his sad eyes and say, I just want to talk. Then, if Mom didn't let him in, his voice would sharpen and he'd hiss, You're poisoning the kids against me. The kids. Like we were toddlers. One night, he cornered me in the driveway when I came home from work. You're playing house with your mother, he said, leaning against his car like a teenager. You think you're the man of the house now. I'm the adult who stayed, I said, and my voice shook with rage. He laughed like I'd said something cute. You don't know the whole story, he said. Your mother's not innocent. I went inside and told Mom, and she just looked tired. He'll say anything, she said. A week later, I got an email from a lawyer. Dad was requesting mediation regarding marital assets. He wanted a settlement. He wanted the house. He wanted, according to his message, what was fair. Mom's hands trembled when she showed me. I can't do this, she whispered. I thought of the envelope in the drawer. The note, don't let him bully you. I said, yes, you can. We got our own lawyer. We handed over the documents from the safety deposit box. The lawyer's eyebrows lifted when she saw the post-nup. This is solid, she said. This changes everything. Dad didn't know that. Not yet. He was still moving through the world like his confidence could bend reality. Serena, apparently, thought so too. She sent Mom a message at one point through social media because she was blocked everywhere else, saying, it's time to be reasonable. Greg deserves to move on. Mom showed me the message without a word, and I felt something sharp in my chest that wasn't just anger. It was disbelief that a woman could step into the wreckage of family and then ask the wreckage to be polite. The mediation meeting was where Dad's world tilted. We sat in a bland office with beige walls and a tray of lukewarm coffee, like someone thought caffeine could soften betrayal. Dad walked in with Serena. That alone told me everything. This wasn't a private marital separation to him. It was a performance. Serena wore a cream blouse and a thin smile. Dad acted like he was attending a business meeting he expected to win. He kissed Serena's cheek and then sat down across from Mom like he was settling into his rightful seat. Maggie, he said, using Mum's name with that soft voice he saves for people he's trying to manipulate. Let's not drag this out. Mum's hands were folded in her lap. She didn't look at him. I don't want to drag anything, she said quietly. I want you to stop. Dad turned to the mediator and started talking about his sacrifices, his work, his contributions like a resume. He said he'd built the life we had. He said Mum was being vindictive. He said the house was his too, because he'd paid for it. Then our lawyer slid the post-nup across the table. I watched Dad's eyes drop to it. I watched his face go still. Not angry yet. Not defensive. Just blank. Like his brain was trying to catch up with a reality it didn't expect. What is that? He said slowly. It's what you signed, our lawyer replied. Serena leaned in, frowning. Greg? She said, and her voice had a sharp edge of concern. Dad's mouth opened and closed once. This is, he began, then stopped. He flipped the page. His hand shook slightly. I saw it. He tried to hide it by tightening his grip. Our lawyer spoke in calm, professional sentences about clauses and waivers and the house being solely in Mum's name. She said the words infidelity and abandonment like they were legal terms, not emotional landmines. Dad's face flushed. That was years ago, he snapped. Yes, our lawyer said. And you agreed that if you did it again, you'd waive your claim. Serena's face changed. Not dramatic, but enough. Her eyes narrowed, and she sat back, looking at Dad like he'd suddenly become less impressive. Dad looked at Mum, then, finally, and there was something in his expression that almost resembled betrayal. You kept this, he said, as if Mum had committed the crime. Mum's voice didn't shake. You signed it, she said. Dad turned to me, eyes sharp. You knew about this, he accused, like I'd plotted against him. I found it, I said, and my voice was steady in a way that surprised even me. Mum prepared for you, because you've always been this. He flinched like I slapped him. Serena cleared her throat. So, what does this mean, she asked, but her gaze was fixed on Dad, not on Mum. She wanted to know what it meant for her. It meant Dad couldn't take the house. It meant he wasn't getting the payout he'd been promising. It meant the life he'd been building with Serena, on the assumption that he'd walk away with half of everything, was suddenly built on sand. Dad's confidence cracked in real time. He tried to argue. He tried to charm. He said Mum was manipulative. He said the agreement was signed under emotional distress. He said, you can't hold me to something from a decade ago. Our lawyer responded with calm facts and signatures and witnesses. The mediator's expression shifted into that neutral sympathy professionals get when someone realizes they're not the hero of their own story. Serena didn't speak for a while. She sat rigid, lips pressed, eyes darting as she recalculated. When she finally did speak, it wasn't to defend Dad. It was to ask, why didn't you tell me this existed? Dad's face went red. Because it shouldn't matter, he snapped, then immediately tried to soften his tone. Serena, babe. Don't. She cut in, and the word was quiet but sharp. That was the moment I understood something that made my stomach twist. Dad hadn't just left us for love. He'd left with a plan. He'd sold Serena a future that included our house, our stability, our safety, as if it was his to trade. The days after mediation were a blur of calls and papers and Dad spiraling. He texted me long messages that swung between rage and pleading. One said, your mother is turning you into a weapon. Another said, please tell her to be reasonable. Another said, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Every message centered his feelings, his inconvenience, his shock at consequences. Then Serena called me. I didn't answer at first. I stared at the number until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. Curiosity is a flaw. I picked up. Maya, she said, and my name in her mouth sounded wrong. Too familiar. I think we should talk. I let out a small laugh, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe the audacity. About what? I asked. About Greg, she said, and her voice was controlled, like she was trying not to sound angry. He's not in a good place. He's saying you're doing this to punish him. I'm not doing anything, I said. He's experiencing the outcome of what he signed. There was a pause. Then she said, he told me the house was half his. I closed my eyes. Of course he did, I said. Serena exhaled sharply. I I didn't know about your mom, she said, and there was something in her tone that almost sounded like discomfort. Not guilt, discomfort, like she'd touched something messy and wanted it cleaned. Greg said you were grown, and that makes it fine, I finished, voice flat. I'm not saying it's fine, she snapped, and then she softened immediately. I'm saying this is complicated. It's not complicated, I said quietly. He left his wife and kids. He expected to take the house. He can't. That's the story. Serena didn't respond for a moment. Then she said, he's been sleeping on my couch. I almost asked why he wasn't sleeping in his own apartment, then remembered. Dad had been tight on money. He'd been hinting at needing help. He'd been positioning himself as a victim. And I said, and I can't do this, Serena said, and the mask slipped enough for me to hear the truth. He's angry all the time now. He blames everyone. He keeps saying he gave up everything. I swallowed. My throat was tight with something bitter. He didn't give up everything, I said. He gave us up. Serena's voice went smaller. I didn't realize, she said, but it sounded like she meant. I didn't realize he'd come without money. After that call, Dad started showing up at Mom's house more. Not with confidence, with desperation. He'd stand on the porch with his hands in his pockets like he was cold. He'd say, I just want to talk. Mom would say, no. He'd say, I made a mistake. Mom would say, yes. He'd say, can we please not do this in court? Mom would say, you did this the moment you left. One afternoon, Liam was the one who answered the door, and Dad tried to hug him. Liam stepped back like Dad was a stranger. Dad's face crumpled. Mate, he said, voice cracking, I'm still your dad. Liam's voice was quiet, deadly. You were my dad when you showed up, he said. Not when you remembered we existed. Dad looked like he'd been punched. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then he turned to me, standing behind Liam, and said, you're enjoying this. That's when I realized Dad truly didn't understand. In his mind, the world still revolved around his feelings. Even now, with his life falling apart, he couldn't see that we weren't punishing him. We were surviving him. Which brings me back to tonight, to him on the doorstep, to the envelope in my hands. He's here because Serena kicked him out. I know that now, because he texted Mom earlier, I have nowhere to go. Mom didn't respond. So he came here, to the house he assumed he'd be able to sell out from under her, to beg. You think you're so righteous, he says now, voice low. You think you know everything. I hold the envelope up slightly, not as a threat, just as a fact. This isn't about righteousness, I say. This is about you not taking any more from us. His eyes dart again to the paper. That post-nup, it's unfair, he says, and his voice is hoarse with anger and panic. She made me sign it when I was vulnerable. I laugh, short and humorless. You were vulnerable because you got caught, I say. Dad flinches. I never wanted to hurt you, he says, and the words come out like he's reciting a line he believes should fix things. I swallow hard. Then why did you? I ask, and my voice cracks on the last word because it's the simplest question and it's the one he never answers. He stares at me. For a second, he looks tired in a way I haven't seen before. Older, smaller. Then his face hardens again because vulnerability isn't a place Dad knows how to stay. I'm still your father, he repeats like a spell. I shift my grip on the envelope, feeling the sharp edge dig into my palm. You keep saying that like it's a shield, I say, but it's a responsibility, one you walked away from. Behind me, I hear Mom's footsteps. She appears in the hallway in her robe, hair messy, eyes puffy from sleep. She looks at Dad, and I watch her face do something quiet and devastating. It closes, not in anger, in protection, like her heart is finally refusing him entry. Maggie, Dad says, and his voice softens immediately. He always saves the soft voice for Mom, like tenderness is currency. Please. Mom's gaze flicks to the envelope in my hands. She knows what it is. She knows why he's here. She looks at him and says, what do you want, Greg? Dad's shoulders sag. I need a place to stay, he admits, and the admission tastes like humiliation. Just for a bit, until I sort things. Mom's mouth tightens. Sort what? She asks. Your life you blew up? Dad's eyes flash. Don't, he warns, and then immediately changes tactic. I made mistakes. I know, but I'm still family. Mom lets out a breath that sounds like it carries years. No, she says. You're not my family anymore, and you haven't acted like theirs. Dad's face twists, and for a moment he looks like he might explode. Then he looks at me again, and his voice drops into something almost pleading. Maya, he says, tell her not to do this. I have nothing. I feel my chest tighten, not with pity, with the old grief, because I remember the man who taught me to ride a bike. I remember him making pancakes on Sunday mornings. I remember him cheering at my school plays. I remember thinking he was steady. And then I remember him folding shirts into a suitcase while Mom stood with her hands in dishwater pretending it was just another night. You don't have nothing, I say quietly. You have the life you chose. He shakes his head, frantic now. She used me, he blurts, and the bitterness in his voice makes my stomach turn. Serena, she thought He stops because the sentence is too revealing. He almost says, she thought I had money. He almost says, she thought I could give her what I promised. He swallows and tries again. She turned on me. I look at him. You left your wife for a woman who turned on you the moment you couldn't give her what she wanted, I say, and my voice is so calm it scares me. And you're surprised. Dad's eyes water, and I don't know if it's real regret or just exhaustion. He wipes at his face fast, like he hates the evidence of emotion. I didn't think it would end like this, he whispers. Mom's voice is steady. I did, she says. That's why I prepared. Dad turns to her sharply. So you planned this, he spits. You planned to ruin me. Mom doesn't flinch. No, she says. I planned to protect us, because you proved, once already, that you would choose yourself over us. And I didn't want my kids homeless because you decided to chase excitement. There's a long silence where Dad seems to finally understand what the secret actually is. It's not the paperwork. It's not the legal clause. It's not even the house being in Mom's name. The secret is that Mom saw him clearly years ago, and he still did it again anyway. Dad's shoulders slump. He looks past us into the house, our house, and his face does something strange, like longing and shame collided. I didn't know, he says weakly, then corrects himself. I didn't want to know. Mom nods once. That's the difference, she says. I knew, and I stayed anyway, until you made it impossible. Dad takes a shaky breath. I just need one chance, he says, voice breaking. I'll make it right. Stop, I say, and it comes out sharper than I intended. Dad's eyes snap to me. I feel my brother behind me, still listening. I feel the weight of the last 2 years in my bones. You don't get a chance because you're uncomfortable, I say. You get consequences because you cause harm. Dad's mouth opens, then closes. He looks at the envelope again, at the legal reality he can't charm away. So that's it, he says. You're gonna let me what? Sleep in my car. Mom's voice doesn't soften. You have an apartment, she says. Dad looks away. Not anymore, he mutters. And there it is. The missing piece. The part he didn't want to admit. He's lost everything he thought he'd win. He's standing on our porch with nothing because he built his new life on the assumption he could take ours with him. I feel something in me shift. Not mercy. Not cruelty. Clarity. You can go to a hotel, I say. You can stay with a friend. You can figure it out the way Mom had to figure it out when you left. Dad laughs, but it's broken. I don't have friends like that, he says, and for a moment he looks genuinely scared. Mom takes a step forward, not toward him, but toward the doorway like she's closing the space. Then you should have thought about that, she says quietly. Before you burned every bridge you had. Dad's eyes glisten. He looks at Mom and says, I loved you. Mom's face stays still. You love what I provided, she says. You love the stability, the home, the way I covered for you. That's not love. Dad flinches like she finally said the words he's been avoiding. He looks at me one last time, and his voice is small. You really hate me, he says. I swallow. My throat burns. I don't hate you, I say, and it's true, which is the worst part. I'm just done letting you hurt us and call it complicated. He stands there for a second longer, like he expects someone to cave. When nobody does, he steps back off the porch. The air feels colder without his body filling the doorway. He looks down the street, then back up, and I see a flash of something. Regret? Maybe, or just the realization that the life he traded us for didn't even want him once the fantasy collapsed. He turns and walks away. When the taillights disappear, I close the door and lock it, and my hands shake so hard I have to press them against the wood to steady myself. Mom stands in the hallway, eyes wet but face composed. Liam exhales like he's been holding his breath for months. I look at the envelope still in my hands. The secret Mom kept tucked away for the day Dad tried to take more than he deserved. The secret didn't make him regret everything because it destroyed him. It made him regret because it revealed the truth he'd been able to ignore. Mom saw him coming, and she still loved him enough once to protect us from him. He didn't just lose a house. He lost the people who would have caught him when he fell, because he chose to fall in someone else's arms. Later that week, Dad signs the settlement our lawyer sends. He doesn't fight it anymore. Serena doesn't appear again. Dad doesn't post photos. He goes quiet. Mom's divorce finalizes without the long, brutal court battle Dad threatened, because he can't threaten his way around a signature he already gave away years ago. He sent me one message afterward. It's not a grand apology. It's not poetic. It's just, I didn't know your mom kept that. I guess she knew me better than I knew myself. I stare at it for a long time, feeling that familiar mix of anger and sadness and something like relief. Then I type back, she didn't keep it to punish you. She kept it because she had to protect us from you. He doesn't respond. Sometimes, late at night, I still remember the sound of his suitcase zipper. I still remember thinking he'd come back once the thrill wore off. I still remember imagining him showing up on the porch with a sheepish grin, saying he was sorry, like a child who'd wandered too far. He did show up on the porch eventually, just not with the apology I deserved. He showed up with entitlement, with panic, with the expectation that we'd be his safety net again. The secret Mom left behind didn't fix what he broke. It didn't erase the years of strain, or the way Liam still tenses when his phone rings, or the way Mom sometimes goes quiet at dinner and stares at the empty chair like she's still adjusting to the absence. But it did one thing that matters. It stopped Dad from taking more. It made the consequences real. It made him look at the wreckage and realize he couldn't charm his way out of it. And for the first time since he left, the regret on his face wasn't something he used to manipulate us. It was something he had to carry on his own.